In this, our last session, we're discussing regionalism and the protection of human rights. In particular, we're focusing on the regional human rights systems and the mechanisms that exist within those systems. The principal regional human rights systems are the European system, the African system, and the Inter-American system. Each of these human rights systems was created under the auspices of different regional intergovernmental organizations. So we have in the Americas the OAS, or the Organization of American States. In Europe, it's the Council of Europe. Of course, there are many European intergovernmental organizations, but the one that created the human rights system, the Council of Europe, is the largest of the regional intergovernmental organizations. Pretty much all states within Europe are members of the Council of Europe. Contrast, for example, the European Union, a much smaller organization in terms of number of member states. So again, European human rights system created under the auspices of the Council of Europe. Finally, the African system, it was created by the OAU, the Organization of African Unity. Today, the OAU is known as the AU, or the African Union. So those are our three main regional human rights systems. Now, there are nascent systems also being developed for ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. There's also one being developed under the auspices of the Arab League, but those systems are not as full-blown systems as the three that I just mentioned. So those three principal regional human rights systems have human rights bodies that have been set up to provide a degree of enforcement for the human rights obligations in the respective regional treaties. So in Europe, you had a commission and also a court. Today, just a court. The commission was abolished as an indication of the strength of the system. We'll talk more about that later. In the Inter-American system, there's both a commission and a court. And in the African system, there's both a human rights commission and also a human rights court. Those other nascent systems I mentioned for the Arab League and ASEAN don't have enforcement mechanisms like the others do. Asia does not have its own regional human rights system. Something you might want to consider while you go through this week's readings is why have a regional system at all? What's the added value of having a regional system? What might be the motivation for creating a regional human rights system? And then think about why is there no such system for Asia? What might be some of the reasons why there is no Asian regional human rights system and regional human rights mechanisms? Now let's look in a little more detail at the different regional systems that we've mentioned already. The European system is the oldest and arguably the strongest of the regional human rights systems. The Inter-American human rights system is a subsequent creation, and the newest of these three systems is the African human rights system. The European system, based on the European Convention on Human Rights. The American system is based on both the Charter of the OAS, the Charter of the Organization of American States, and also based on the American Convention on Human Rights. The African system is based principally on the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. Now, these three regional human rights treaties have a number of similarities. There's quite a lot of overlap normatively. A number of rights are found in all three, and typically that's the civil and political rights. All three focus on civil and political rights, but the American Convention on Human Rights has some protection for economic and social rights. The African Charter on Human and People's Rights has a little bit more protection on economic social rights, and the European Convention has no protection for economic and social rights in the convention, but there is some protection for economic and social rights in subsequent protocols to the European Convention. But in those three main treaties, there is a principal focus on civil and political rights. There is also, of course, some variation, as I mentioned. In the Inter-American system, there are some particular rights to the Inter-American system. For example, the right to a name, which you don't find in the other regional human rights mechanisms. There's also some variation in the articulation of the rights and in some of the limitation clauses that accompany some of the rights set forth in the American Convention. In the African Charter,